What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Bulls Latest. Your host, Matt Johnson here. I wanted to kick off today's show with some fun news here. The Bulls are bringing back the red pinstripes. Chicago unveiled its statement jerseys for the 2025-26 season yesterday. The iconic black uniforms with red pinstripes are going to be back. They debuted during the Jordan era. This is the third statement edition uniform throughout the franchise's almost 60-year history here. Jordan and the Bulls wore the threads during the 95-96 campaign when the team went the iconic 72-10 and won a championship. They also donned the look during the 96-97 seasons along with 2007 and 08, and the last they wore these in 2012 and 13. They haven't worn the design since 2013, so kind of an exciting thing there. I know those uniforms are loved by a lot of Chicago Bulls fans. They are very historic, given that 72-10 historic season that Jordan and that squad put up. Those have a lot of meaning to the Chicago Bulls franchise. The Bulls tapped Bulls legend Dennis Rodman to unveil this. They had him assist with the reveal, and they called he called those uniforms his favorite. So those were always a favorite of Dennis Rodman throughout the years, and those are back. I just wanted to start today's show by kind of going over some news with that. So we'll see the Bulls in those this upcoming season. I'm certainly excited to have those back there. I wanted to switch gears and go over The Athletic as a report card reveal for the Chicago Bulls. This was not a pretty one. I'm not surprised, but a very solid source in The Athletic gave an offseason report card for this Bulls team. They gave the Bulls a D+, and the only team in the NBA that was worse than them in these report cards was the New Orleans Pelicans, which is not a good spot to be if you're Chicago. I mean, it's not a great look. They went into some reasons as to why things were put as they were for the Chicago Bulls in a D, given that Arturas and Mark Eversley earned their team this grade by kind of doing a multitude of things. I mean, when you look at the article, they alluded to the Bulls' overall lack of direction. Again, something I've talked about since the start of this show. The Bulls' lack of direction, their heavy reliance on internal development. They struggle to develop from outside the organization. They struggle to make big moves and the proper moves. And this is something that, when they graded the Bulls here, The Athletic kind of turned to as well in explaining this. They also did not support the Ball-Okoro swap there with Cleveland, especially because it does add a longer-term contract to the books. However, they did state, and I think I mentioned this as well, Okoro's $11.8 million in 2026-27 isn't a major eyesore, but it is something that they regarded as being a negative there in terms of the overall swap for Ball and Okoro there. He also does happen to fill a decently sized hole for the Bulls, though, in Okoro, and I've talked about this as well. Okoro is going to have a much bigger role than he did in Cleveland. I think when you look at the Bulls on paper, he projects to be far more dependable on this team, which is definitely something that you could take positively out of the Lonzo Ball swap there with Okoro. So we'll see how that kind of pans out. They also, in this grade, deemed Tre Jones as a win. I think it's a win as well. In a league with few true point guards now, he provides a pretty underrated skill set. He's still only 25 years old. So you're getting Tre Jones with under control for the next couple of years. At 25 years old, he's a trustworthy and careful distributor. He came to Chicago fresh off back-to-back seasons, averaging over 6 assists with only over a little over one turnover a game during that stretch there. For a franchise that has struggled at the point guard position in the past and is attempting to instill somewhat of an up-tempo pace of play here and a dynamic offensive attack, I think Jones is a strong fit at only $8 million a year. Very reasonable option financially. I think at his age, he offers some excitement there. So, and if things don't work out for Tre Jones, the Bulls slapped a team option on this deal instead of a player option, which is surprising given the way the Bulls have done things. But that gives them an option if they if things go kind of sour there with Trey Jones. I don't expect that, though. I think he's going to be a very solid player for this Bulls team moving forward. So overall, though, a D plus, they got that D plus grade just ahead of the New Orleans Pelicans, who are also a complete mess right now. So that's, trying to take some positives away from that, from the Athletic, but, few and far between. They do see the Bulls offseason as somewhat of a failure. I know a lot of Bulls fans would agree to this point. So switching gears to a critical Giddey contract update here. Clutch Points, Brett Siegel and Joe Colley also reported this. The two parties are expected to reach an agreement by the end of the month. This news came out yesterday. The Bulls are expected to reach a resolution in a new contract, likely in the 3-year range. The latest speculation from agents not involved in negotiations suggests something in the $65 to $70 million range. This makes a ton of sense. I think that the longer you go into the offseason without a deal done, the more uncertainty it brings to the futures of like Modest Buzelis, and how I've talked about that and how impactful not having Giddey around to start next season could be. You want to get that done. You want to start building chemistry, get ready for the preseason and training camp, which is in the near future here. The offseason is moving quick. So, I think when you look at this 3-year deal for $65, $70 million, it makes a ton of sense. I do think the Bulls will ultimately get somewhat of a discount here when it comes to what Josh Giddey is asking for, which ultimately helps the organization. I know it's not necessarily what Giddey's camp wants to see, but the longer this goes, the worse off it is for Giddey, in my opinion. I just think we're going to definitely expect a deal to be done by the end of this month. So that's some exciting news there. I know I've talked a lot about Josh Giddey since the start of this show. I'm eager to get something done to get him on the books for the upcoming season and the future for the Bulls, as he is one of the core pieces. So that'll be certainly something to look forward to. And, overall, I just wanted to wrap up today's show by talking a little bit about what a move that went down around the NBA yesterday. The Celtics trade Georges Niang and 2 future second-round picks to Utah for rookie R.J. Luis Jr. out of St. John's there. Niang's more than $8 million salary will go into Utah's trade exception from the John Collins deal that went down in a relative move here. The Celtics have agreed to a 1-year, $3.3 million deal with free agent forward Chris Boucher. The Niang trade allowed Boston flexibility to remain below the second apron after adding Boucher. So, again, Boston's attempt to kind of clean up the books here in terms of the financials. These are a couple moves to do that. They are now $7.8 million below the second apron after both moves, and they saved $34 million in luxury tax penalties. So Boston is being very careful and strategic in terms of how they handle their financials. Since the NBA draft, Boston has reduced their payroll from $540 million to $239 million, and this was just the latest effort to support that. So when you look at Boucher, he'll have a significant role in this Celtics front court this upcoming year. I think with this Boston team in kind of a gap year with the Jason Tatum injury, it'll be interesting. But I think when you have Jaylen Brown and guys still around who want to compete, I think Boucher offers some good buffer there for them in this upcoming season. Boucher departed Toronto with the all-time franchise record in points, rebounds, blocks, minutes, and games played off the bench. So this guy was an all-time great when you look at his time in Toronto. He was also the Raptors' last remaining member of that 2019 NBA championship team. So although this isn't the flashiest of moves, I think it offers a lot of intrigue for Boston moving forward. That was the big move around the league yesterday. We had a couple of things supporting that move as well, as I wanted to kind of just touch upon here. Overall, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this episode of Bulls Latest. Let me know what your opinion is of the Bulls bringing back those throwback uniforms. Do you agree with the Athletics D+ and the grade that they gave the Bulls? Are you optimistic and excited about the Josh Giddey deal getting done by the end of August? So let me know what you guys think about all these things. And again, I want to thank you for joining today's show, and we will see you guys next time.